Welcome to Bit Picking TV, a visual podcast about software engineering. I am Mark.
I'm Laura.
I'm Greg.
Hello, Laura.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Mark.
Hey. In this episode, we are going to talk about security and privacy. Have Zoom been a bad boy?
Is security just too hard for developers to care about?
And does anyone care as long as we can change our background?
Let's go. So everyone now is working remotely. The world seems to have discovered the wonders of Zoom, which is kind of taking me a bit by surprise because I think we've probably known about Zoom for quite a long time, and it's always just been a bit of business conferencing software. And now, your mum rings you up asking you how to use Zoom, which is a bit strange. So on the one hand, everyone loves Zoom if you go by their share price. On the other hand, there's quite a lot of concerns about Zoom and their privacy and their security and their ability to really be suitable for a modern generation of remote working.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think? Are you Zoom users?
Yeah, all the time.
I suppose you have to be these days.
Yeah. And the only thing I'm concerned with is my background, my Zoom background. I have to make sure on a daily cycle I've got a new picture.
Have you gone as far as putting your own green screen in there?
No.
Because you can
No.
do that as well, can't you?
Yeah.
You can just change the background and it works out where you are, or you can go full on chroma key, and people have been wearing like green shirts, so they're just a floating head.
Yeah, on a plate. I saw one on a plate. That was brilliant. No, I haven't gone that full on.
I love it.
I've been in like the sea and everything. Yeah.
So I suspect that you guys have got straight to the point here, which is that no one actually cares about security and privacy.
Yeah.
As long as you've got good features in the app.
I actually
End of episode. End it here.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks.
well, for the sake of carrying it on, I'll be the dissenter, and I don't use it unless I need to. I have used it in the past, and actually I haven't used it for a few years because sort of the concerns about privacy and security they're not really that new. They've been around for a few years actually, which is why I wasn't using it. But I thought, oh well, they must have improved it by now, because it's been a few years. So I tried to install it on my Mac, and the experience of that was really quite shocking to me. It's
horrible. Yeah.
It's going to get a bit nerdy, but when you join a meeting, it automatically downloads a client or an installer, and then you open that installer, and it looks like a normal macOS installer. So most people are probably familiar with it. But the first click you press installs it, closes the installer, and then opens Zoom, which is a very abnormal experience. Normally you go through a couple of steps where it says, are you happy to run this installer? This is what the installer is going to do, accept our terms and conditions, all of that kind of stuff. But they've abused one of the sort of features of the installer system that Apple provide to just install it all silently in the background, and then just launch the client. And I was like, what's going on? And actually I was so sort of intrigued, let's say, but also a bit wound up by the whole thing because I'm a bit OCD about installing too much software on my Mac. I went to have a look, and it was installing all sorts of things in the background. It was abusing paths and things like that. And actually, to unwind it was quite difficult. So I wasn't impressed with them. But then the application actually opened, and it's not that bad. It's quite a nice looking app, quite easy to use. So I was a bit like, oh, why do they have to? I think this is the problem, isn't it? For every bad thing, there's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you tried to set up a meeting as well? That is annoying.
Oh, is it?
That process isn't pretty. But I don't like logging into it. I don't like setting up meetings, but actually using it isn't too bad. It's standard,
Right.
I suppose.
To your point about the installer, I mean, it isn't like, I know that a lot of people have been saying, well, it's doing some sort of fairly nefarious things in order to do this stuff, and so there's great concerns about what else they might be doing. And I've seen things in the past about them leaving a web server running on your
that was what I was alluding to. That's how they used to install it in the past, or at least on macOS. And the idea there was that when there's a a little web server running, you could then click a link, which would be sort of grabbed by the server, and then because the server had privileged access, it could then launch the Zoom client for you.
Yeah, right.
But the problem with that was, well, A, it's probably not a good pattern anyway, but also when you uninstalled the app, you didn't uninstall the server.
Yeah, right.
It was there forever. And then secondly, it left, because it was running, you could then, other applications could hook into it and grab your camera and microphone as well.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons I hadn't used it for a while.
The question is, people act like this is being done for some nefarious, malicious means, but generally, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it was just trying to improve the user experience. I just want to be able to click a link and have it open. I don't want to have to go and copy and paste it. So we can just blame all the UX people.
Users.
Yeah.
Of course.
Easy
targets.
I think you're absolutely right. That's exactly why they've done that. And you can just imagine the conversation in the, on the Zoom conference about the feature, and some bright spark saying, "Hey, we can do this cool thing," and it's that sort of thing. Well, just because you can, should you? And they said, "Yep, we should." Because the CEO recently, I forget his name, but he came out with that as the excuse, and he said, "Well, we didn't design this as a consumer app. We designed it for enterprise," and that sort of somehow that then excused all of these things they were doing. And I was just thinking, and I'd be interested to get your guys' opinion on this. Why is it different? How is it that a user, if I'm in an enterprise mode, why is my expectations of it as a user considered different to when I'm in a consumer mode?
Yeah, I mean, I'd also
low.
I'd call it bullshit on, I'd call a bit of bullshit on that, just because, as we know, quite often within enterprises, users' laptops are far more locked down than they are as a consumer. So actually, if your software is going to do some odd things like that, it's far more likely that you won't be able to install it on a laptop than you will just on your own laptop anyway. So
quite. These features as well, they seem very consumer centric to me, not enterprise centric.
Yeah.
You click one link and all of a sudden you've got this client running and servers in the background. I don't know any enterprise, if we do follow that enterprise persona, that would approve that. You know.
And we also all know that enterprise software is deliberately built to be as obscure and hard to use as possible. In my experience.
And you're right. A lot of the clients we work with are saying Zoom's locked down for us. We can't use it. So it's a bit of a problem now. I guess they've all unlocked it recently.
Right.
I don't know how else they would talk.
I was going to say, what do? Do you like email MOV files to each other or something? Or?
Yeah. Print it all out. Mail it.
I have sympathy with corporate security guys and gals, because I imagine it is a hard job and people will just click on absolutely anything. In my experience, and that includes me sometimes, right? So there are some things that are not quite so obvious as that they're scammy. But it must be quite hard keeping your network kind of straight and
clean,
mitigating the risks.
I had that actually. It's funny you say that. I had that thought today, but for something else, about how sometimes you just do something like there's these automatic responses. Because given what's going on, you would think we're all hypersensitive to being too close to people, to touching things, that kind of stuff. And I went to deliver a parcel today, went into the shop, spoke to the person behind the counter, had my 2-meter rule, didn't touch anything. We were I would walk up to the counter and she would walk away and then we'd swap places. And then right at the end, she handed this PDA to me and said, "Can you just sign this?" And I just walked straight up with my finger and went, "Remember?" And I was like, "What? Now I've got to not touch anything else for the whole drive home."
And you just can't help but get an itch or something.
You drive with your finger out the window.
Have you done the thing where you wipe it on you, so you're like, "I'll just wipe that, it'll be fine."
No, because I saw the article the other day that said about how your clothes can, apparently keep it going for 3 days or something. So now I've got a decontamination bit in my front porch.
But you see now that it's been passed to tigers in a zoo. So don't touch tigers. Don't go touching any tigers.
Don't touch a tiger.
That's Carol Baskin's fault, that is.
I'm halfway through that. I've started watching. Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
But the point I was trying to make was that I didn't even think, as soon as she handed me this PDA, I just went straight in and signed it,
Yeah.
And I bet that's the same for security issues that, well, it is, isn't it? That's how they do phishing attacks and stuff, that they just make it look just good enough that your brain doesn't think, and you just jump straight in and, and then it's only after the fact that you think, what? I should, It's a bit like that thing. What do they call it? The staircase response or something, where you think of the best response to something when you're walking down the stairs on the way out. That when you're in an argument and you think, oh, I should have said that.
I get that with this podcast. After you start recording, I'm like, I had loads of stuff to say. Just literally flatlined my brain all the way through.
You should have this rule where we have to wait 10 seconds after every question or every action so that you can really evaluate whether this is the right thing to do. And right now we're going.
Yeah. But do you think security and privacy, I'm just thinking from a developer's perspective, security and privacy is also hard, right? And it's difficult, and it inevitably is expensive to implement in the right way. And you inevitably take shortcuts with security, because there's also varying levels, right, that you can deal with. If you want to go full on, GDPR regulations, encryption, and being able to delete people's data at will from anywhere in your system, or retrieve it and export it and all that kind of stuff, that stuff becomes really expensive to do properly. So it's natural that people kind of take shortcuts, or shall I say, they evaluate the situation and decide they don't need to go the whole hog.
You think they get that far? Do you think that people even think about it enough to decide not to go down that path? Do you think?
Some may do, some may not. I think. Yeah, it's quite easily forgotten, and it is always a problem. I think in a software development lifecycle, I think you either end up with development methodologies that you'll probably find in things like the defense industry, where you are just basically slowed down by tons of red tape.
Yeah.
Or you just don't have anything, which is more likely. There's
everyone else in the world.
There's no easy middle ground, which is maybe once every 6 months you'll think, oh, maybe we should put a password on that. Thing. But I don't think, and I'm pretty sure that there have been many people that have tried, introducing security gates and things into agile development life cycles. I'm not really sure how much success they have. I think you're very reliant on developers just having a good sense as to when they need to implement proper security measures, and also just think about what the edge cases might be.
I saw a cool thing on Twitter actually with that. Someone has created a pack of cards. I can't remember what it was called, but it looked a bit like Cards Against Humanity in that sort of design style. But the idea was that every time you had a product feature, you would get this pack of cards out, and then each card would say, have you considered what would happen if X? And then one of the things might be that it goes viral when you suddenly have 100,000 more requests than you were planning. Another one was about security. Another one was about what are the ways people are going to try and hack it. And then the idea was
that tweeted that, I think.
Oh, maybe it was from you. You are.
I think I retweeted it from someone. I think it's Kit. I can't remember her name now. Kit. Someone. I'll have a look.
Put it on the captions on the in the edit. But I saw this and I thought that would take forever. If every feature that I ever brought to the table and discussed, and we had to go through all of those points.
Yeah.
And then I did think, wow, maybe I should be doing that. I felt a bit bad for a while. Because to your point, Mark, it was like.
The answer would inevitably be Yagni. You aren't going to need it. We'll do that later. Yeah. We'll think about it. Yeah.
Because you're right. It just feels like that some of these things, if you really addressed everything, you just, I don't know, I just sometimes feel like you wouldn't ever get anything done.
Yeah, right. You could spend forever and a day implementing, security and data privacy features.
Yeah.
Without actually delivering anything else. I think it's definitely a balancing act.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that. But there's also that feeling of, having gone through, GDPR processes and dealing with all that, you're like, well, but we're not doing anything bad with it. Like, we just need the phone number. Like, it'd just be quite nice to have. So you kind of like, do you know what I mean? You go, well, but this is for people that are going to do something bad with it, right? And we're not doing anything bad, so like it's fine.
We can get away with it.
By the way, this doesn't really apply to if anyone's wondering.
Yeah, well, I used to work somewhere where all the passwords were saved in the database in plain text, and the developer I worked with was like, "Well, it's okay. It's only me that looks at it, and I'm trustworthy."
Yeah,
I was like, "But I've seen it. I'm not trustworthy."
No, exactly.
But it is a balancing act, definitely. Definitely a balancing act with the user's trust as well. So making it so that it is secure enough, but not too much friction as well, so that they don't end up being so annoyed that they can't get in, or they just don't want to go through all the hoops.
Exactly, which
like
is user experience, right? Security is essentially the opponent of usability and ease of use, which is the more hoops I make you jump through, the more you're just going to go, stop this. I'm just going to go. I'm going to do all our conference calls on House Party from now on.
We should have chosen House Party.
I haven't used it yet. I keep hearing about it. My kids are on it, but
I have used it. But there's an interesting angle on that as well, on the security thing, because their app, the way their video conferencing thing works is that when you start talking with someone, you kind of create a room, but that room is public by default. Yeah. And so all of your other friends can see that you're in that room, and then they can just jump in, because it's meant to be like casual chatting. So you can just join the room, and it's very low friction in terms of setup, and your mic and your camera are, straight on, and you're in that room. So it would be like someone just popping up over there or over there and being, "Hi, I'm here." And it actually works quite cool, and it's got some when you're in a room, you can play games like draw something. That was a big thing a few years ago, wasn't it? So there's a version of that in there. But they got into a bit of a security snafu as well, because somebody, apparently, this is their story that came out after the fact, started a smear campaign and said that if you install House Party, you're allowing people to sort of hop onto your other accounts like Netflix and Spotify, and therefore they can get into your, they can hack those accounts and then later maybe get to your bank account and stuff. And this was so prevalent, whoever started this rumor, because it was bullshit, it was a complete bullshit, that I had tons of people that suddenly deleted the app. And then you open the app and you look at your friends list, and it will say friend deleted, friend deleted, friend deleted. I had people asking me like, "Oh, is this really true that if I install House Party, people are going to hack me?" And it got so bad that the owners of House Party, Epic Games of Fortnite fame, they put out $1 million bounty and said, if anybody can find the source of this and can prove that it was a smear campaign, and i.e. prove that it wasn't true, it was all just made up to smear them, we'll give them $1 million. And they were deadly serious. And I was like, that is fantastic, because they get all the hype now for offering $1 million bounty. So all of that negative press is instantly reversed. And if they do find evidence that this was contrived and purposeful, then they've got a lawsuit there, which will be way more than $1 million.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoever thought of that has really taken that situation and turned it around. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was really clever. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like one that we've been using called Whereby.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's the same sort of thing where you have a room and you can just drop in and out of. And we use it at work. And I think I nearly sort of became a cropper, basically, and nearly gave it to my mum. I was like, yeah, you can use this if this isn't working, Skype's not working or something. And, thought actually she could just drop in at any time
Okay.
into my work calls or something. My mum pops up. That would not be good. So I thought better of that, and I've not given her that.
Well, I guess that whole thread is that seems to be what the next big thing is, right? Because that's sort of what Facebook portal is. And again, in this sort of new world where suddenly, like Mark said at the beginning, we're all sort of used to video conferencing, but there's a whole, bigger group of users that don't have this. And so there's been a lot of talk about how to make it easy. And Facebook portal, as much as I don't like Facebook for their sort of position on privacy or whatever, but they've got this camera that fits to on your TV, and then you can instantly just drop in on people that have
Can you explain to me what Facebook portal is? I don't know this.
Okay, so it's a webcam, but it's a physical device, and you put it on the top of your TV. I mean, I don't really know the technical details, but I guess it's got HDMI out or whatever. Connect your Facebook account to it, and then you can just video conference all your Facebook friends, all of your Messenger friends. It works across devices, so if you've got Facebook app, it will call into that.
Right.
TV to TV, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like simple. Everybody knows Facebook, everybody knows Messenger, so you just start a call and then you're on the TV. So, these people that don't have laptops, they only have phones. These people,
Yeah.
I mean, who are
These
they?
people.
I haven't ever mixed with them. There are some people. And it's quite useful. All the Amazon shows, all the Amazon Echoes with the TVs, or the screens, not TVs.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing there. You can just say, call mum, and then it will just go straight on. I think Google Home does the same thing. So this idea that you can just drop in on people, seems to be a big sort of, that's where all the big players.
Yeah, because otherwise it is. Sorry, go on, Mark.
Well, I was going to ask, clearly people don't really care. Like when you talk about privacy and the fact that maybe it's listening to your conversations, and do you think people are happy with that? Do you think it's kind of overblown as to how much of an invasion of your privacy that it is? I mean, a good example is, take Alexa, right, or an Amazon Echo. An Amazon Echo has a chip in it, which will recognize when I say Alexa, and then start recording my conversation. So, if I trust Amazon, this thing is not continually sending my data anywhere. It's only, programmed to awaken a specific word. And even then, if it sends my audio somewhere, I kind of accept that because it's needed for training machine learning algorithms, for example, which has landed them in hot water, right, in the recent past, because people go, oh, other people are listening to my conversations. You're like, well, they have to some extent, not every conversation, but some of it, because that's
how
what
it works.
is, right? That's how it works. So I kind of trust they're doing the right things with it. Like, is that misplaced? Should I be more paranoid, do you think?
Well, I definitely think it's a principled place. I think at the moment, for most people, the benefits of that outweigh any of the published detriments. It's okay that they've got this information because I like the fact that, I don't use Facebook, but things happen. I don't know. So I guess that for me, it's a lot of the principle things. I sometimes describe it like voting with your wallet. Although there's not a transaction occurring, like a physical financial transaction, because I don't want to support that company, I try not to, to do anything that would earn them any money. Mm-hmm. And I know that I'm in a very small minority because Facebook, as an example, and all of them really just seem to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But if there was a company on the high street and I didn't like the way they ran their business, I wouldn't go shop with them. So, but I definitely think it's a principled thing. And there are just the benefits for most people outweigh their principled positions.
Yeah, but I guess my question is one of trust. If you decided that you did want to use Facebook, would you trust that they were doing reasonable things with your data, or should we be more paranoid? And maybe Facebook's a bad example, but let's say Amazon, should we be more paranoid that actually they are just sending that data out to someone else? And do we care? I mean, do I, realistically, does it do I care that much if someone sells my, the fact that I think Laura's frozen, isn't she? Oh, she's back.
I'm here.
do
I'm just sitting really still.
Okay.
So this is it. Facebook are like listening to this, and they're gradually degrading our video until we say good things.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I can barely hear or see you, both of you. And your
So
cameras-
due to some technical issues, believe it or not, ironically, we've moved to Zoom just to test out its security features, which include the beautiful backgrounds.
Lovely backgrounds.
So that you can't see where we are. So I'm going to try and pick up again and ask the question, which was, should we be concerned that companies are doing nefarious things with our data, or is that just paranoia and we should just chill out about it and accept that it happens, and if we want nice things, we're going to have to give away all our data? Discuss.
Where to start with that? Surely we shouldn't have to put up with it. It doesn't. Yeah. Doesn't. It doesn't feel right to. Yeah.
Sorry, you go, Laura.
No, it's right. I had no thoughts there. Really, it was more just I don't want to. You're not taking it. My stuff.
I suppose it's that kind of thing. There's probably some lovely, pithy quote about this, where the fact that we don't have to worry about it means that there are enough people worrying about it for us. And, if we stopped worrying about it for real, then I guess over time, people would be using our data for the wrong things. We were joking about GDPR earlier, but actually, Mark, what you were saying was entirely GDPR compliant. As long as you tell people what you're doing with the data, I believe that's all the requirement is. So if you want to say to them, we're not doing anything with it, then that's great, and then if you do something with it, you can be liable and that kind of stuff. So I don't think we do need to worry, but I wonder if that's because enough people have worried before us to put us in that position. And therefore we should continue to keep worrying, otherwise it may get to a bad place.
Well, yeah, I suppose there's the fact of, like, right now when we talk about people using our data for bad things, generally it means something like someone trying to sell me something that I didn't ask them to sell me. I guess it's when it extends into the realms of using it to deny me a service, or to arrest me for views that I may hold that are not tolerated. That's a very different thing. Is that the future?
I'm not sure. I think it might be inevitable. I mean, in China, right, and you never know whether this is true, but they had this app, and we may have spoken about this on the last episode, but they had this app, and it would give you a color, red. This is during the coronavirus crisis, and it'd give you a color, red, amber, or green, I guess. And if you were red, you weren't able to enter certain places like the transit network, that kind of thing. So there's some data there that they hold on people, which is directly affecting their lives. You could argue it was for good, but on the other hand, there's some medical records there that are associated with me as a profile in a data system somewhere.
It comes down to the society though as well, doesn't it? Because those societies are quite what do you call it? Collectivist. They understand why they're doing that because it's for the greater good. Whereas over here we're more individualistic. Is that right? Okay. And then we're like, no, it belongs to us. You can't have it. We're slightly less inclined to do something for the greater good like that. We wouldn't put up with it maybe as easily as they do over there. That's why they've stayed indoors more and they've allowed sharing their data as standard.
This is a good point about machine learning, and I did mention this just a minute ago, and I don't know whether it's usable from where we got to on our bit of conversation, but something like machine learning, what you are doing is collecting a wealth of data for the greater good. So if you personally So if everybody says, I'm not going to donate, I'm not going to allow someone to have my data, then things like machine learning, which are in most cases, used for a good, you can't have it, right? You can't have it both ways. You can't both not give away any data, but get the benefits from large scale learning and large scale data sets.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if that concept, I mean, that's quite an advanced concept, isn't it? So I wonder if that's why this is such a tricky topic, because people don't understand machine learning. They don't understand, the irony is that the ultimate success of machine learning is when something looks really simple. It looks obvious because you look at that thing, like computer vision, for example, you go, well, I can tell that's a mug. So when the computer finally decides that it can pick out a mug in a collection of 1,000 objects, although that's incredibly complex and required a lot of training data to get there, i.e. these breaches in privacy breaches, actually the result is dead simple. And I just don't think people can comprehend the path that it has to go through, and I picked on computer vision there because I'm looking at a mug, but it's the same with voice. It's the same with, self-driving cars, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah. Yep. So it kind of feels a bit inevitable that you're going to have to give away some data, and we should just get used to it.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah,
So
tricky one. Yeah.
But isn't the point that we need to be responsible with it? We joked earlier when in the Skype portion of this call about how as developers we may not think about this stuff as immediately as we probably should, or we might find it difficult, that kind of stuff.
Is that why it's not looked at?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. It's difficult, and it's not the sexy bit, is it? It's quite hard, and it's quite open-ended, and it's quite grey.
Yeah.
That's possibly why it's not like the fun bit.
Yeah.
For some people, I mean, yeah, obviously, some will find it fun.
Well, it's the SecOps crew, isn't it? That's another one of those
SecOps
portmanteaus that infuriate me. But yeah, SecOps. If you're a SecOps guy, you're a suck up to Facebook. That's what you are.
Facebook patsy. But I mean, what's interesting to me is, so I follow on Twitter Troy Hunt, who is if you know
the pwned guy.
Have I been pwned?
Yeah.
Checking your passwords. He runs that, and almost every day here's another breach because someone left a MongoDB running on an internet-facing server without a password, and or this company did it, and you realize how many basic mistakes companies are making in security. Like it doesn't need a genius, and it doesn't even need much time if you're creating a database, to think, A, I shouldn't make this internet facing, and B, if I really, really have to, maybe I should put a password on it. These are really basic mistakes, and they seem to be happening over and over and over again. So clearly, as an industry, we're failing to even, and maybe I'm tarring everyone with the same brush, which is not fair, but it just shows that there are plenty of people out there that are building software who just aren't doing the simple things that they should do to keep your data safe.
But I think mostly that's probably, I think there's a term for this as well. I'm going to use the word escalation, but it's a bit like when you accidentally put your, one of your secret Amazon keys in your repo and then you publish it publicly. Like, you didn't do that on purpose.
Yeah.
It was there from 2 years ago or something, and then a whole series of other events occurred. And then, the second it's on a public repo, like you can't undo that,
Yeah.
So I'd have a bit more faith in us that we're not all doing this like maliciously.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I definitely think we should make it easy not to, or make it hard not to. Whereas if you look at like AWS console, and actually I had the misfortune of trying to replicate some AWS stuff on Google Cloud Platform, and it's equally as obtuse. And I'm absolutely fucking paranoid that I've haven't ticked the right box, or something else has occurred, and I'm suddenly going to get a bill for like $4,000 for the bloody Google Maps API. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, so I do think that it is hard as well, and if you're not a seasoned professional, I do think you could quite easily make a mistake, that we see.
Even if you are, go on.
No, sorry, go on, Laura. I'll let you.
I think there's still a lag because I'm just talking over everybody. But yeah, even if you are a seasoned professional, it's not like you do a whole year of uni learning that and then do it all the time once you're in your jobs. It's usually like a one-off thing, isn't it? Like, is that right? I might be speaking out of turn though, that you set it all up and then you leave it.
I was going to ask, have you guys ever been through like training for security, web security or database security or anything in your
Not me
careers?
Well, I have as part of some AWS training, but not in any great detail.
I mean, I've done very little, very little focused training on here are some security best practices. I think, and it is a weak spot. And I think we, as an industry, we should do more of it. But it is kind of seen as quite boring, or also, I mean, the other thing that happens these days is a lot of it is rendered obsolete because, if I take, for example, web security exploits, a lot of the frameworks these days are built to stop you making those mistakes. So, if you're using a database ORM, it almost certainly won't allow SQL injection attacks. If you are using a modern web framework, it will include things like cross-site forgery tokens in your form so that people can't, and do all that stuff. But I wonder whether sometimes that then takes away the need for people to learn about these things, and so it's easier for them to step on the landmines when they're away from the safety of some of these other things. They just don't have to think about it normally, so they can make those mistakes again. So I don't think we should sort of let up on actually training people in what these things are and why they're problems.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's probably some. I mean, it is all complicated, isn't it? So if you think that something is secure by default, you may stop thinking about it, and then you're only as good as that tool that you've adopted.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's tough.
Again, but all these things, at the same time, making sure you cover all these things is a barrier to then just getting your job done. It's the same thing of, we talked about security being the opponent of usability. It's also the opponent of productivity in a lot of cases. So again, if I've got, do I really now have to implement like tokens around here and like all this?
Although funny enough, somebody said that to me the other day, but in a different context. And I said, "Oh, how are you getting on with the sort of working from home?" And he said, "Oh, I've just spent all my time just sorting that out, and I haven't had a chance to do my job." So I just went back and I said, "Isn't that your job?" Like he's the like sort of head of the department, and I was like, "Isn't that the job? Like to be able to deal with this sort of stuff." So I'd probably argue as well that maybe the security thing, the problem is that we don't think it's our job. We think someone else should be doing it, or the tools should do it by default.
But
and actually, maybe
thing,
it is,
isn't it? There are security consultants that you can get in to do that bit. A bit like someone who comes in and like cleans your house because you don't want to do that bit that's not interesting to you. So I mean, have you had any experience of that?
Of consultants, not specifically to kind of fix the problems we've created, I don't think. I mean, of course, I mean, one thing we do is go through things like penetration testing, which I find fascinating, actually. And I think I'm not nearly clever enough to be able to do that kind of stuff. And I wish I was, because I find it like the exploits that people can find in your software are really quite astounding. And they will find something. They will always find something. Some people are sort of crazy talented at finding weird loopholes and ways that they can send data into your application. And they get, and it's the same point. If I were to cover every single one of those, I could work forever to try and shut down every single possible loophole and backdoor in my application. And still probably someone would find some way. So it's a bit of an arms race.
And I suppose I was just thinking there that, you know, like on this thread of have you got the money to do it? And when you're a startup, you probably don't. But then you're also, unless you've really gone viral quickly, you're also not really being looked at. But when you're a Google or a Facebook, you know, everyone's looking at you, and so they must have these huge teams. So it's probably you're a victim of your own success, aren't you? If your budget on SecOps is like greater than your budget on, you know, actual development, you know.
Is that what's happened to Zoom? It's still in startup mode. It's just not had the have the budget poured into that yet. Yeah.
I mean, the theme does seem to be, given that we're now on Zoom, you know, that they're not
You're like.
But the theme of the episode does seem to be that they're not quite as bad as the press has sort of made out. And I do feel a little bit sorry for them, because they have, I don't know what the numbers were, but it was something like, you know, 2 million daily users to 100 million or something. I don't think it was quite as big as that, but a crazy amount of growth. And then suddenly there's all these new eyes looking at it, and everyone wants to be a viral blogger because they found some, you know, thing to shit on or whatever. So I do feel a little bit sorry for them. So they probably are a little victim of their own.
Well, the latest thing now, isn't it, is about the end-to-end encryption, and they say we do end-to-end encryption, and it depends on your definition of
end-to-end.
End-to-end.
Yeah.
It's end-to-end, but they've got the keys to both ends.
Yeah. Well, also in the middle, it's not encrypted as well. Right. So it was end as in from client to server. For everyone, but in between the server to server communication, whatever, was apparently not. Although I then read a sort of a rebuttal post or comeback post, blog post, that said that that's really difficult actually to do it with vast numbers of participants. So it's sort of not surprising that you can't do that. But I think the theme has been that they lied. I think that seems to be, when you like unwind it all. Yeah, they did some things that, you know, probably weren't ideal, but they didn't tell anyone, and then they got caught out, you know. So it was more of a reputational thing than.
Again, was it a lie or was it a definition? Was it a?
No, I think that they knew what they were saying.
Nefarious in their. I keep using the word nefarious. But being nefarious in what they. Surely they would. You know, their intent is still the same. Their intent is that your traffic shouldn't be intercepted by someone else. And to a large extent, they've achieved that, even if it's not in a way that is defined by.
Well, and to your point, most people, you know, when you said, do people care about, you know, privacy? I don't think you said those words, but when we had that chat, most people probably don't care. So you just get a couple of bloggers and a couple of thought leaders that jump on it, you know, and then. Unfortunately, it breaks away from that bubble, and then it's on the BBC News and whatnot. But I think most people don't care, because you can change your backgrounds like that. Max. And that, it just makes it. That's the best.
Who cares? Take my money. Take my data.
In fact, decrypt this now. Broadcast it.
Oh, watch out, Laura! There's a shark.
Was that the right way, or was I running away the wrong way?
I'm going to have to keep flying the bit-picking flag.
But they've since sent out a security update, how they've switched on passwords for everything now, and they've done all sorts. So yeah, I guess they're just struggling to catch up from their startup mode.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed we didn't get Zoom bombed, which is what you call it. And somebody jumped in and showed a picture of their potato or whatever.
Potato?
Well, I was going to say penis, and then I realised that this is a family show.
Well, you've already sworn.
This is not for family.
So.
What's that, Mark?
You've already sworn a couple of times, so it's too late for that. Talking to startups as well, I mean, one of the things that I'm involved in is IoT, and famously they say the S in IoT stands for security. As in there is none. You know, and that's because that's an area that's full of startups, and again, like, actually it's just a bit too much work. You know, adding security is generally not a feature, right? Until someone jumps on you for not being secure. But the wealth of webcams that you can now get onto with default passwords. But then, I mean, twas forever the same, right? I mean, same problem with routers getting shipped with default passwords, and anytime you have to ship a password on a bit of hardware is a problem, because you can't just generate, ask the user to connect a USB cable and set their own password. So that's always going to be problematic, and generally the user population doesn't help themselves either by merely installing that camera somewhere private, not bothering to change passwords. So there's an awful lot of user education needed as well.
They make for great TikTok videos though. When someone's got some footage of someone reversing into a house or something like
that. I'm not on TikTok. Are you guys on TikTok?
I'm not on TikTok. It's banned in our house.
I wouldn't say I'm on TikTok, but I do find it hilarious. Like you can view the popular posts without having an account, and it's like Vine. It's Vine but better.
No, but TikTok,
no.
TikTok's a great point, because actually there was a lot of people that would tell you, TikTok is a Chinese company that actually they've got some very
nefarious
ways of doing things as well. And we go, hey, it's fine because I can get cat videos. So who cares? I don't think it's not healthy, really.
That is quite funny because you're right. The reason I'm not, as much as I have a very principled stance on Facebook, for some reason I don't on TikTok, who are probably a lot worse. And it's because the payback is great. Like it's the equivalent of watching TV. It's just entertainment. I don't think of it of anything more than that. But it is enough for me to think, those security issues or those privacy problems that people keep talking about? Nah. I want to see another dance.
I want to see another cat. Yeah. But the way I see it is, if it was me, it's like someone coming into your house and just like looking through all your stuff, like looking through all your drawers, taking stuff out your wardrobe and putting it on. And it's like, would you allow that? Would you allow someone to just sit in the room and listen to you talk to someone like of your family? That's what it feels like for me. So I don't have a Alexa, I don't have a Google Home, because it sort of freaks me out a little bit. But that's kind of what I compare it to, is it's having someone there all the time. And you wouldn't stand for that if it was a real person, would you? Going through your stuff or listening in.
This is what I mentioned earlier, which is, well, actually, knowing the implementation is, I trust that the Echo is not listening to, or is not shipping my conversation anywhere. It's not listening in the sense of the word, except for, there is a very specific voice pattern encoded in the chip, which is waiting for me to say Alexa, at which point it will start taking out. But whilst I'm not saying that, it's just a dumb device that's sat there. But but maybe I should be more paranoid about that situation.
I feel incredibly conflicted after this conversation now.
Do you?
Well, yeah, because I gave
opposite ends of the.
Well, I gave it the whole Facebook, I'll never use them, and I've got Alexas, I've got Siri, I'm on TikTok, not on TikTok, but and so what am I anymore?
What am I? What is this world we live in? You're on Zoom.
Mark is really challenging me here. Like,
I think you need to go the Stallman route.
I need to do what?
You need to go the Richard Stallman route. You need to disconnect your laptop from the internet entirely, air gap it.
All right, I think we've exhausted Zoom.
We have exhausted.
I think we've run out of Zoom.
Yeah, this still doesn't make sense.
I think we've not had human conversation for so long that we're kind of like, how do we do this?
We've got a bit of cabin fever going on.
I've switched my background off now, just so you know.
Oh, yeah.
My actual house.
Oh, I see. I get it. Yeah.
House now.
I'm in the parlour.
Right, yeah, West Wing.
The West Wing.
Okay, so Greg, to Zoom or not to Zoom? That is the question.
I'm a convert. I think the background feature has nailed it for me. So that's
I
it.
told you.
I'm doing everything on Zoom these days.
I think the best way for us to monetize this channel is probably to turn it into a Zoom background review channel.
Yes.
I think that would be good. I could get on board with that.
Yeah. I think Laura, you'd be excellent at that. I think you're ahead of the game.
Yeah. Although I have seen, maybe for next week's episode, I have seen that you can add a video, but I wasn't quick enough on the show to actually get a video. But
I've seen some great videos of people kind of like walking behind themselves or like doing little dances in the background.
All right. Well, maybe we'll do a mid sequence episode where we all bring our best background videos. That should be a challenge for next episode.
Yes. Awesome. All right. I think that's it for this one. Let's say goodbye to the listeners.
Bye, listeners.
Bye.
All right. Bye, Laura.
Bye, Greg.
Bye, Mark. Goddamn Carol Baskin.
I'm gonna get that hair.
If you do that, that's a miracle, and I think we should market whatever that solution is.
Cut mine off.
Like a